Good morning, folks. It's a Sunday. Do you get a gas leak in your Honda Snowblower or the carburetor's leaking gas? I'm going to show you what to check and how to fix it. From my experience, I've worked on 400, 500 of these machines and carburetors, and the most common questions that come up when the symptoms a leaking carburetor or leaking gas. I got my Honda Snowblower hat, enthusiast hat on today, and I want to thank everybody that's subscribed and liked the videos. I try to make these so that will save you money. If that works, then please like and subscribe. All right, let's go from there. You got a leaking carburetor or a leak in your Honda Snowblower. You smell gas in the garage or whatever, or you look in your gas tank and there's no gas, but you had gas in it before. This usually happens after a long layoff. Maybe the gasoline overflowed the carburetor and it's leaking from the carb, or it's leaking over into the crankcase. And I'm going to show you how that happens, why it happens, and how to fix it. And I'm going to tell you. A lot of times I get these questions all the time about the leaking carburetor. Many times it's because the owner messed with the carburetor. They took the carburetor off, or they took the bowl off, did an in-frame cleaning, or was messing with the carburetor, and they put it all back together, and then they email me or message me on the group, and they say, "Hey, carburetor, ever since I fixed it, now it's leaking gas." So I'm going to show you why, and I'm going to go through the usual suspects. I'm going to also first tell you the many reasons why it would leak. Now, the hardest part on this, sometimes for me anyways, is finding out where it's leaking from, because the gas is leaking from, you're feeling the gasoline right here at the end of the carburetor, but the leak could be coming from anywhere. It could be coming from this bolt. It could be coming from your drain bolt. Could be coming from your sediment cup right here. It could be coming from your shutoff valve, or it could be coming from your hose from the tank end where the filter is, which is kind of rare. Sometimes, like if you've taken off the if it's an old carburetor, if it's an old fuel line, it could be split where it connects to the carb. If you see a split there, if you find out that's where it's coming from, just take the hose off, clip off about a 1/4 inch, and stick it back on with the clip here. Put that back on. So that's kind of rare too. I've only seen that maybe half a dozen times in the last 7 or 8 years. Um, it could be that, like I said before, your shut-off valve. It could be leaking from the top here. That's kind of rare also. But I'm just trying to tell you, folks, all the different reasons why it could be leaking, where places that it could be leaking from. So you usually go from the most obvious first to the every other one, and you eliminate the possibilities. Like on the hose here, if it's wet, then you know that it may be leaking from your gas tank end. The fuel filter goes into the gas tank, and there's a little O-ring on it that could fail, or it could be loose, or usually it's the O-ring is cracked or whatever. Very rarely is the gas tank got a crack in it or leaking from the metal, but this is kind of rare. I hear about it when people have taken the tank off and then they put the new fuel filter on. They put it on too tight, and then it's leaking from there, or the connection's not good, or the hose is cracked. And so let's go through the usual suspects. I'm gonna assume that it's an older carburetor maybe, and the O-ring is cracked or flat, or you were messing with the carburetor. This happens to me all the time. I take the carburetors off and clean them and put them back together. And a couple times I don't put it together right, or I pinch the O-ring on the bowl and it's leaking from there. So let me go through this first. First of all, you want to take off your bowl cover. I already loosened it up. Here's your bowl. Here's your mounting nut. It's got a it's got a little red washer. Can you see that little red washer that goes on the bolt here? That creates the seal. It sometimes, a lot of times, I've seen this missing. Somebody will just tighten it up so it won't leak, but it leaks a little bit, and the O-ring is I mean, not the O-ring. It's a washer that's missing, and or it's cracked or dry. So you can replace that. You can get the whole kit from Honda. The kit has these cloth washers. It's got the bowl O-ring. I don't know if you can see that. Put it up against this paper here. The bowl O-ring. It's got a settlement cup O-ring. It's got the fuel shut-off valve uh, plastic part that sometimes goes bad and has to be replaced. That's kind of rare too. I've only done it maybe 3 times in the last 7 years. That's what it was leaking from. It was leaking from the shut-off valve up top, and you have to remove 2 little Phillips head screws. You have to be very, very careful because there's parts in there you want to know how they go in, come apart, and go back in. You have to put them in correctly and replace. Usually, it's because of this part here that's defective, and it's plastic, and you have to put it in correctly. So you pay attention to how you're taking it apart. You want to take pictures maybe if you're not sure what you're doing, and make sure everything goes back together right. You'll know that you didn't put it together right because this won't turn. It'll be frozen. And then you put one part in wrong. So it could be that, but it's kind of rare. I mean, what I'm trying to do here is show you all the different reasons why gas could be leaking from your Honda snowblower. It's usually from the carburetor. Sometimes it could be from the tank end, but usually it's from here. So I take the bowl off. You get your O-ring that goes into a slot in here that may need to be replaced, or it's kinked up or something, or it's cracked. This one's kind of old. I'll have to use a pick. I'm not going to actually do it, but I use picks a lot to pull out the old O-ring, and sometimes it has to be taken out piece by piece when it's old. And I clean all that out. Get some carburetor spray some carb spray in there, use a Q-tip maybe, and clean out the slot that the new O-ring will go into. And the Honda O-rings for the bowls, they have these little nubs on them. So you push them in so the O-ring will stay in. And you make sure that the O-ring is on all the way around nice. No kinks or nothing. And you push it in the slot so it stays in before you put your cover back on. Now with this cover here, you see that indent in there in the bowl cover? It goes on a specific way on your carburetor. You see the float here? You see how it's curved? Now you want to line up the indent with your bowl. So you line it up correctly and you put it on. You move the bowl a little bit, make sure it's in the proper slot before you see. If you don't do that, you could be putting the bowl on wrong and you tighten everything up and you think you got it right, but it's not. But it's going to be leaking because it's not in the slot. There's a slot here, see? So you turn it, you feel that it's turning, then you tighten up your mounting bolt. You want to make sure that's lined up right. If it's not, if it's lined up, if you just put it on any old way, you could be messing with the float, so the float won't work correctly and shut off the gas. Now that's what the float does. If you have an overflowing carburetor that's coming out of the top onto your garage floor, or it's bleeding over into your engine, your float is not working correctly. It shuts off the gas. As the gas rises in your bowl, this rises. It's almost like a toilet. It rises. It rises with the level of the body of the carburetor, and it shuts off the gas. You see, so this could be defective. It can be adjusted. I've worked on 400 or 500 of these carburetors. I've never had to adjust one of these. I mean, Honda carburetors are the best. I mean, if you have to replace a carburetor on your Honda, replace it with a Honda carburetor, not a cheap aftermarket carburetor that costs $12 or $19 or whatever, and you're thinking you're saving money. In the long run, you're not saving money. Uh, Most of the time, the aftermarket carburetors they're hit or miss. They work sometimes, and sometimes they don't. They don't last very long. They're cheaply made. You want to use a OEM Honda carburetor. They're expensive. Maybe anywhere from $50 to $100 depending on the size. But they're worth it. It's a critical part, folks. I mean, you want this thing to work right out of the box. You want to put it on the machine. You want it to start up on the first or second pull. You don't want to have any running problems, no start problems, or whatever. I'm always ranting about this, so I'm sorry. But the carburetor is an important part. You want to use a Honda carburetor. Now, with this float not working correctly, a lot of times it's very, very easy to remedy. Now, it's got a little uh, pin in here that holds the float on. Now, after you've done this, I don't want to take up too much more time, but after you've done this, you can test this. If it's already on the machine, you can turn the fuel on and it should dribble out. The fuel should dribble out. And when you push up on your float with your finger, it should shut off the gas. Okay? Now, we've shut off the gas. That's it's working correctly. The float is level with the carburetor body when it's right. Otherwise, it has to be adjusted, which I really don't think you're going to have to do with these things. Now, another way to test it, if it's off the frame, off your machine like this one, and you want to test it, after you've cleaned it, after you've cleaned the needle and you've cleaned the inside where the needle goes, it's called the needle seat. A lot of times there's the debris in there, which is making your gas not stopping. It'll overflow the carburetor. So another way to test it is that you blow into the hose. If the carburetor is off the machine, of course, and you blow them. Do you hear the air? See, this is why it's working correctly. Your float is hanging down because there's no fuel in the machine, and it's going to fill up with gas while this float's hanging down. You can hear the air. That means it's working that way. Now, when you test it after you've cleaned it, you turn it upside down, and I don't know if you can see this. You see how the float is level with the carburetor body? Okay, let me blow into it now. See, nothing. So that means that you did it right. It's all cleaned out. It's shutting off when it's supposed to shut off. All right, let me take this out and show you a quick way to clean it. Pull the pan. You can pull your float out. On the end of the float, you can see there's a little needle. and there's a little rubber and tip. You want to inspect that tip. You want to make sure it's got a nice point. It's not jagged. It's not dirty. Not dried out. If it is, then you have to replace the needle. And you clean that very, very gently. You don't want to damage the tip. And then you want, oh, also you want to make sure that there's no gasoline. And this happens usually with the metal floats, not so much with the plastic floats. The old style metal floats sometimes got a little hole in them and fill up with gas. It doesn't work. So you shake it, make sure there's no gas in it. If it's got gas in it, you got to replace it. So you take that off, and then where the needle goes, right in here. Can you see that, folks? Right in there. That's where the rubber seats with inside here and shuts off your, or lets the fuel flow when it's supposed to be and shuts it off when it's supposed to be. A lot of times there could be some debris in there, debris from your carburetor uh, or your gas tank got through the fuel filter. You're always going to find maybe a little bit of debris in the sediment cup. And if there's any, what I do is I take some carburetor cleaner with the straw, I stick it up there, give it a couple squirts, and most of the time that works. And then you put everything back together. You test your float like I just showed you, and most of the time that works. On a Honda carburetor, they're great carburetors, and sometimes they just need an in-frame cleaning, or in worst case, sometimes you have to take it off and take it all apart and clean it, or change all the O-rings and everything. Now if it's leaking from the sediment cup, before I go any further, a lot of times I've just tightened it up and it stops the leak, or I've tightened up the. I should have said this earlier. The first thing I do, I'll tighten up the bolts, and sometimes that works. But if that doesn't work, then you go through what I'm going through. Right, you take off the sediment cup, and there's an O-ring in there too. I'm going to take it out with my pick. This Here's a little O-ring in there. It's about the size of a quarter. It could be dried up. It could be flat. Over time it flattens out and then it'll leak. Or sometimes it's missing. A lot of times, if the previous owner was messing with the carburetor and this thing came off and they didn't even know it was supposed to be there, they stuck the cap back on and it starts leaking. Just a little drip, drip. So this comes with the kit too. This comes with your gasket kit from Honda. They're about $12 for the whole kit. You get this one to replace, and your O-rings and your little washers for your your bolts, your drain bolt, or your mounting bolt. I don't know why I'm having trouble. It's a Sunday and I even haven't been drinking yet. So you check that, uh, replace that, put it on tight, not too tight, just put it on snug and then a little bit more. And you don't want to put it too tight because then you could damage the O-ring. So, all right, let me see what else it could be. It could be the fuel, I told you, the shut off thing. And it could be this part here. Very rare. I've only run into maybe 3 of these out of 400, 500 carburetors, but it's a possibility. See, I want to go through all the possibilities. Now the simplest thing first is usually your big O-ring. Okay, if it's leaking from the carburetor, if it's leaking from the tank, you'll know about it because the hose is wet with gas. So it's probably this. It might be dried out, cracked, or whatever. And then the next thing would be it could be one of your bolts. It could be the washer there, or it could be this on your sediment cup O-ring. And the kit also has the little tiny See if I can show you on my thumb here. It's got the little tiny 1 millimeter by 4 millimeter O-ring that goes on your idle jet. I got another video on that, but it goes on the end of your idle jet. If you have a problem with surging, the engine going, like that, you take the idle jet out, which is pretty easy, which I showed in the video, and you inspect this little O-ring. It could be broken, cracked, flat. If it's flat, it's not working correctly. So there's a lot of great stuff in this little kit. Um, if you're taking if you're doing an in-frame cleaning, or if you've taken your carburetor off, I mean, I inspect everything very closely and just replace parts as needed, especially if it's an older carburetor. If it's a 2015, 20, 25-year-old carburetor, what the heck? You got the carburetor off, spend another $12. If you're doing the cleaning yourself in an ultrasonic cleaner, or a dish pan, on your stove with some darn dish soap. But might as well. I mean, you got it all apart anyways to clean it properly, and you got the jets out, you got the emulsion tube out or whatever. You're cleaning everything. Get one of these little kits. I don't think Honda will. I don't think Honda will just sell you this. Maybe they will. Maybe you can go to your dealer and ask them. You say, hey, all I need is this. You can get them on eBay too, and Amazon. You can get a 6-pack or a 12-pack or whatever. I mean, I usually buy 10 at a time. But anyways, I'm not sure if you guys tell me. Put it in the comments. Can you get these separately at the Honda dealer? These parts separately? Maybe if they're really cool, you know, if the mechanic's really cool, he said maybe he'll pull one out for you. But so that's let me see. Let me see if I figured out everything else. Your gas leak is from the tank, maybe from the gas filter, kind of rare. The hose could be split on either end, or loose. Uh, the O-ring on your bowl cover, your bowl. That could be the big O-ring. Your sediment cup O-ring. Your your little washes on your drain bolt or your mounting bolt. Uh, that's about it. I want to recommend that you shut off your gas in between uses on the older carburetors. If you leave the gas on for over the summer or whatever, it could overflow your carburetor. If like I showed you that the float is not shutting off your gas properly, it could be just one drop a day, and over time it will overflow your carburetor and start leaking either from the carburetor body, or worst case, it would bleed over to your engine. Now, if your gas tank is empty, and you know for sure that there was a little bit of gas in the tank, check your oil. Check your oil on a level surface. See if it overflows, and put some on your fingers. If it smells like gas, then I can't say that word. Well, you got a problem. Then you've got an overflow problem from your carburetor. Okay. I usually run the machine, shut off the gas, and before I start messing with the carburetor, I'll either drain it from the drain first, or I'll shut off the gas while it's running and let it run until it stalls out. So it's easy to work on, less mess, less fuel to mess with. Okay, but you can drain it from the bowl. So let me think. Is that it? I think that's it. If you have any questions or suggestions, please put them in the comments. This is kind of a common problem, especially after a long layoff, or you've messed around with the carburetor, you took it apart, or tried the in-frame cleaning or whatever, and then you start having a gas leak or something. So if you think this video helped you, please like and subscribe. Thank you for all the people that have subscribed already, and support the Facebook group Honda Snowblower Enthusiasts. I really appreciate it. It gets me out of bed in the morning. I'm retired and I just do this as a hobby. And I try to help people save money. That's the main thing. You know, the shops are all backed up during the winter, during the snowstorm. They're not even going to look at your machine. So the more you know, the more you can try and do this stuff yourself and save money. So thanks a lot, folks. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.